Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you for joining me here today. We're taking a look at NEO. Now NEO is extra special coins. I think it's something that's worth looking into, so please do your own research and take a look at some fundamentals before you invest, but also bear in mind that we're only going to be looking at the technical data here today. So that's pretty much the point of these videos, is to ensure we just look at the technical charts so we can understand good entry points, perhaps ways to take some off the top and to profit in this market that we're in right now. Every little bit helps, right? So again, I'm not a financial advisor. Please always, again, do your own research, and this is for educational purposes only. Before we get started, there is a link down below in the description for $25 in Bitcoin from Voyager, as well as a link to our Telegram community. Please jump in there, get engaged. We've got a fantastic group of people, and you can learn a lot just by staying active in the community. Okay, so again, just another option for you if you'd like. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and get into the video. Let's check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a closer look at NEO. And just before we do, I always like to look at Bitcoin and Ethereum just to get quick perspective on the market and kind of see where things are at. Because as we know, Bitcoin is essentially a catalyst for a lot of price movement, and Ethereum, a lot of things are on the Ethereum blockchain, and it's just important to understand what both of those are doing. So as part of my analysis videos, I just like to look at that first. That way we set a baseline, kind of see how these other coins that we're covering are essentially impacted by Bitcoin and Ethereum. So let's take a look here first. So taking a look at Bitcoin, I got to pull it up here for us. And this is cool because Bitcoin's doing some awesome things, and as we can see, it just jumped up above the potential resistance line of 57,000. Now this was a major resistance line for a while that took some time to come back up, but what's great is it broke over that. It held for, I would say, about 24 hours. The last 24 hours has been below, but it looks like it's trying to break above again. So if it stays above and holds, we should be likely seeing some price movement from Bitcoin and an increase. It is projected over the next 25 days to hit upwards of 64,000 plus. I think that's even being conservative. Regardless, we're not here to analyze Bitcoin, but just know that that's roughly what we're looking at. We had our first major sell-off, Judgment Day on the 17th, and then of course the 22nd for the second major sell-off, and the final on the 25th. Ever since then, it's been making higher highs within reason. But good news is, it looks like we're trying to break above that support. And by the way, this is the 4-hour chart. It's best chart, I feel, to use the 50, 100, and 200-day moving averages, so you get a really strong indication of those support and resistance levels as they progress. But right now, the 200-day moving average is the one to pay attention to, because that's always been, as you can see here, a major support with a small variance for Bitcoin, and of course major resistance right now, but I think that's going to change. Okay, so just something to note, that's how that works. Ethereum just about to break 3,000. Big surprise there. It's been ramping up pretty strong. So just to note this here, this is the first Bitcoin sell-off on the 17th, second on the 22nd, and the third on the 25th. And ever since then, it's come straight up. And in case you don't know too, Ethereum is the coin that people turn to when Bitcoin's doing poorly. So it's normal for Ethereum to jump up as a result of Bitcoin coming down. So that's why you see this super strong recovery with the retrace and a super strong recovery again. Yeah. So that is it. That's just basically Ethereum, $29.95 right now. Good stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the topic at hand. This is NEO. So first of all, this is the one-day chart. I always like to start with the one-day chart so we get perspective on the big picture and work our way down. We'll look at the 4-hour next, and then the 15-minute, and possibly even the 1-minute chart to identify some good entry points for you. So looking at NEO here first, this is the one-day chart, and just to quickly note, even though the moving averages are a ways off based on the price action being so drastic, just earlier, basically 2 weeks ago, the 50-day moving average is working as a support level, and so it will be interesting to see how that is tested in the upcoming months. So pay attention to the 50-day moving average on the one-day chart. It could be another support level. We'll see what happens. The RSI right now is trending towards overbought because we've had 4 solid green bar days. So that's 4 straight days of constant growth. So it was at 87, jumped up to 96, somewhere in the 101 range, and today's high was 112, 113, somewhere in that. So pretty good stuff. And as you can see too here, the moving average, the MACD, the bottom line is intersecting in upward fashion. That usually tells us that we're in bullish territory, which is great. That's what we're hoping for. So in all reality, we get the price to come all the way back up to this high to test the resistance and break through. So it's a $133, approximately 134. We could probably round up to say 134 for an all-time high. So that'll be a major resistance level. The secondary resistance might be somewhere in the range of 120. Okay, so we'll mark those later. Actually, no, we'll mark the 120 right now because that was tested twice. We'll see if we get to that point. I do think it's going to be a while before we get to 133, but you never know. If it jumps up through here, it could continue to increase. It's been moving very fast recently. So this is good news. Okay, so that is the one-day chart. Moving on to the 4-hour. Let's go ahead and see what we're looking at here. RSI appears to be a little overbought. So be cautious with your entry point because until it hits this resistance line, we're not exactly sure what will happen next, but it is making pretty consistent higher highs. So that is interesting. Furthermore, the MACD just kind of, it's slow and steady, nothing to really note here. I wouldn't bother with that. The things that are important to note is the moving averages. First of all, the 50-day moving average was working as a resistance, and now it's a support. The 100-day moving average has pretty much been it's been a solid support line with a very small variance almost the entire time. So honestly, for this whole month, all of April, the 100-day moving average has worked as a support. So this is a very good sign. It means that the price is where it should be right now. So it hopefully will continue to work itself into a channel. So what we could see over the next few days is for the moving average to continue to creep up, eventually to test this resistance line. So the price isn't tested, or sorry, if the price doesn't test and jump above, it'll probably work itself in between the 100-day moving average and that resistance level of approximately, what does that add? So let's say 120 for the even number. Okay, so that's just kind of what we're looking at there. Another thing to note, let's see if we can find another support level. This was, yeah, there's a support there. Let's take a look at what, 73, approximately $73 is a major support, tested 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Yeah, it's kind of in this little channel here. In fact, let me see if we can, no, that'll be okay. Yeah, we'll stick with that for now. All right, so let's look at the 15-minute chart and see if we can find a good entry point here. First thing to note, and I try to bring this up in all my videos, is the RSI. Anytime the RSI goes up over 70, it's one of my favorite indicators on the 15-minute chart because that's usually a time to start trimming some profits. So we see here, just as an example, on the the 1st, that was yesterday. So yesterday, the price jumped up initially, right up to the range of 104. Sold off a very little bit, and then came back up again for a second increase, essentially, to stay above 70 on the RSI, the relative strength index, to hit about 107. Came down, tried to gain back momentum, and then retraced its way back down. So in that time frame, just to give you perspective here, that was approximately an 8%, 8.25% variance in price. Okay. So that being said, had you just say sold some profit here and then got back down here, you would have had about a 5% gain. Yeah, so 5% honestly is a big number. I shoot for 1 to 3% per day as a day trader. If I'm doing short-term swing trading, 5 to 10%, 3 to 10%. But bottom line is I would have made my money had I paid attention to this RSI and sold when it hit its top and bought back in when it came closer to its bottom. Now you never truly know how low it's going to go. Sometimes it doesn't come down as far as you'd like. But the bottom line here is if it's 1 to upwards of 8% in this example, then that's gains. Those are gains you want to be taking. Okay, so please just note that. Please understand that the RSI really helps a lot to identify those points. Okay. Another thing that's important to note as well is the difference between the volume weighted average price and the price top. In other words, if we see here this difference from this point, in fact, let me make it bigger, from right here all the way to this peak. I think we already measured it. It's somewhere in the range of probably like 5 or 6%, because that was 8 down there. There you go, pretty much 5%. So it's a 5% variance between the top and the volume weighted average price. That means the price was super overextended that time, and it had to come back down, right? So that's kind of what the RSI is telling us, right? The price is overbought, which is why it's sold off. You look at the VWAP, price is overbought because it's too far away from that line. The average price, the average volume in the last 24 hours, the difference was too much, okay? So if you see that combination of a price variance above the VWAP and the actual relative strength index over 70, it's like a win-win. Anytime I see that, I sell a little bit off the top, wait for it to come back down, and get right back in. I basically average down my price, and I take some profit, take that profit, put that in USD, and eventually Bitcoin, Ethereum. There's a cycle you can kind of get into by doing this, but the bottom line is that taking money out that you have invested, taking your profits, is the key to being a successful trader. Okay. Try not to get greedy. You know, even if it's 2% gain, it's still profit, right? So just bear in mind, those are good indicators that I look for that help me find excellent ways of being able to just take a little profit as we go along. Because we're in altcoin season right now, we should be taking as much profit as possible so we can prepare for the bearish market that is soon to hit, you know, probably roughly 4 to 8 months down the road. Okay. Can't say I didn't warn you. All right. So that's essentially what I look for on the 15-minute chart. Bear this in mind too. Look at this as well. Today, 10:30 Pacific Standard Time, price jumped up. Even though the VWAP difference wasn't super high, it still jumped up over 70, and look what happened. Retracement came back down, and what would that be? That was, again, another approximate 5%. Now, it's hard to find the bottom in this situation, so, you know, heaven forbid you bought right here and then only got back in right there. That's still averaging down your overall price. And depending on the size of your position, that could be a decent amount. Now, when I say trimming off the top two, I'm only recommending 20% at most, okay? Don't sell your entire position and then get back in, you know, in a few percent lower. It doesn't work that way. It's not always a guarantee, which is why I always go with a safe bet and just do little profits at a time. Anytime I take entry, it's 20%, 30%, 15%. It's never a full 100%. Okay. So if you're new to the channel, this is probably news to you. If you're a subscriber currently, I'm so sorry for being a broken record, but never go all in unless you're planning to hold on for dear life, and you know that NEO is the end all be all. It's the only coin you ever want to invest in. If you are doing short-term swing trading, even long-term swing trading, only take smaller positions and be smart about your entry point. There's nothing worse than taking a massive entry and the price coming down a little bit and you selling a little bit later being like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. You take all your profits that you earned over the past few weeks and just wipe it out. But if you took a small position and you lose a small position, that's not the end of the world, right? It's a small loss. We can recover from that. It's not emotionally draining, and it doesn't really tax you, if you will. I taxed myself for so many years before, and I can tell you it's just a frustrating, upsetting process. I love being a happy trader and just getting 1 to 3% per day. That's my goal. That's all I do. Just slowly grow the wallet. That's just the way it goes. Everyone's different, of course, but just try to take that from here. Don't be greedy, and only take small positions, and I think you'll lose a lot less and you'll gain a lot more as long as you pay attention to the indicators and wait for confirmation. So let's talk about confirmation here. So taking a look here. First of all, with confirmation, what I mean by that on the 15-minute chart is waiting for 2 solid green bars before you take entry above a support or resistance level. So for example, let's just take this again. This is a better case scenario. Doesn't always work this way, but say right here, you see this VWAP line. You're like, should I take entry? Okay, we got red, green, red, green, red, green. I don't feel good about that personally, but as soon as I see this here, green bar, and another green bar here, this is probably a point where I would take entry right at this section here. So I'd likely take entry here once I see that green bar close, the second green bar. And then look at the price come up here, and then I would plan to sell or to trim somewhere in this range here. Again, it doesn't always work this way, but if I take a small position and I add to it as I get closer to my goal, I'm going to be doing a lot better. Because keep in mind, these are all 15-minute time frames. So I've got plenty of time to be able to decide if I want to get out or get in and stay in. But since the price is hovering over VWAP, I have two confirmations that tell me that the green bars have closed for 30 minutes. So this is a 30-minute confirmation. Plus, it's moving on top of all the moving averages. I'm in good shape. Keep in mind, the RSI is a little high, so I'd be very careful about my entry point. I would probably still consider an entry right here because it's under 70. But once it gets over 70, right here, I'd probably sell. So I'd probably only be in for a small position from here. All right, let's pull this up. It'd be right here to right here. But look at that, 3%. I'm done for the day. That's it. That's what I do. So again, just that's what I try to push through to all my viewers. Just pay attention, be aware of support and resistance levels, but more importantly, wait for confirmation before you take entry. And to me, the safest entry point is to wait for 2 solid green bars in a 15-minute time frame, putting a total of 30 minutes between your entry point and where you plan to take entry. So right here, I see this green bar forming. Great. Not ready yet. It's still cooking. This green bar starts. Okay, getting a little excited. Once the green bar closes, we start this new bar here. Consider taking entry because it's likely going to be ramping up, especially when you see the RSI increasing under 70. You're probably in pretty good shape. But once I see the RSI over 70, I go ahead and make my exit strategy. I start selling at least half of my total position, and I take smaller gains as they get closer. And yes, as truth be told, the fact that I'm putting smaller amounts in, I'm not gaining as much. That's so true. I could literally have gotten 5 to 10% had I held on. But you know how heart-wrenching it can be to go up this high and to see your profits just slowly drain away? It's not worth it. Try to temper yourself, try to be patient, and wait for the right entry. So that's just an example of what I do and how I approach it. You can do what you'd like, but just wait for confirmation and make sure you're on the right track. Let's do one last thing here. Let's look at the 1-minute chart, just so you can kind of see what's going on here. And what I'll do is I'll throw on the Fibonacci retracement tool, just so you can kind of see what this looks like. Because the price right here retraced down here to the lowest point. So what we'll do is we'll kick this on, just so you can kind of see what the industry standard is for a situation like this. You can kind of see the support and resistance levels. So most larger traders are using the Fibonacci retracement tool to establish an entry point or exit point. So what I want to kind of instill here for you is, if you can see, first of all, really quick, look at this. Resistance, support. Obviously resistance because that's the highest point, but there's a support level there. But it's also resistance now because it's broken below. But what I'm getting at here is the fact that you want to be less greedy than the next guy. So if you haven't heard this already, this is perfect, because if you are less greedy than, just say, those industry leaders that are controlling the price, then you're always going to take profits. So say, for example, you got in right here. Okay, you just felt good. All the indicators are there. You got those a few green bars, feeling good. You get in. The price comes up to this point here. I would recommend you take profit at this point. The point just below the resistance level set by the standards that the industry leaders are using. That way, if it turns around and reverses on you, you're in the go. You're in the green. Now, this is not an exact science. I don't like showing this all the time because I think that it creates kind of a false sense of reality and security. But what you do is you use this in combination with everything else I just taught you, and then at that point you can make an informed decision. But my takeaway here isn't to just follow this, is to make sure that you're less greedy than they are, and to sell before they sell, or to buy before they buy. Because they're likely going to follow a plan like this. They're going to have a scenario like this, and what you need to do is make sure to be smarter than them, because being a good trader isn't about all these indicators that I'm looking at. It's also understanding how they are operating, how they're controlling the markets, and being one step ahead of them. So if you see this, and you draw this from the lowest point, see the lowest point of retracement to the highest point, and you get these charts, then be smart. Don't make this the end all be all, but use this to your advantage and just be less greedy than they are. So take any one of these support and resistance lines and undercut it by a small percent, and you'll likely be much more successful. All right, So that's my third rant. I don't know. Hopefully you find this beneficial and you can disseminate some positive information from this. But I guess the long story short here with NEO is to be cautious. Let's summarize here. First of all, with the way things are going right now, before you take any entry, I would absolutely recommend we consider waiting for this major resistance and this major support level to be tested. And if not, make sure you wait for the price to bounce off the volume weighted average price and to wait two solid 15-minute green bars for a total of 30 minutes before taking confirmation. And that might be a consideration to take, because with the momentum that NEO has right now, I don't know if it's going to come back down or not. I kind of feel like it's on fire and it's going to keep going. Like, I mean, look at these bars, you know, like mostly green, couple little corrections, mostly green, correction, green, correction. So I would not be surprised if it comes up to this resistance line of roughly 120, tests it a couple of times and breaks through and stays above. So, you know, that being said, just be smart about your entry, wait for confirmation, and pay attention to the RSI and the 15-minute chart. And you should be good. Look at this, big surprise. RSI up over 70, right around 75, and now there's a retracement. It's coming back down. It may not come far down, but it's coming down. So as you can see, it keeps doing these, you know, increases and retracement. So if these patterns continue, wait for the price to retrace down a little bit further, ensure you have good, proper confirmation, and get back in. Because look at this. This is interesting. Two solid green bars, sold off. No big deal. But the second set of two solid green bars, 1, 2, shot up, came up a good probably 5-6%. There's a correlation there. Try to pay attention to those indicators. They're talking to you and telling you what's going on. Anyways, that's enough for today. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. I'll continue to cover NEO moving forward. It is one of my favorites, and I can tell you that you'd be probably pretty wise to invest. But this isn't advice. This is just me feeling that I like this coin and I think it has a lot of potential. So feel free to reference my other video on the fundamentals. So have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much again for your time. We'll see you again soon.